again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Pride, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. Hope you're having a great week. It is Hump Day. It's Wednesday, for me, I'm actually off tomorrow, so it's my day off. So it's Friday for me. So I hope you're having a great day. Tomorrow, though, I will be coming on live with former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. She's going to be joining me. We're going to talk about Melodee Buzzard and her disappearance. That's going to be the topic of discussion tonight. We're also going to talk about Jack and Lilly Sullivan. There's been a vigil. We kind of talked a little bit about some things. You know, I had some questions for Daniel not too long ago, and he's answered some questions for me. And, you know, I'm just going to tell you the answer to those questions. I find them concerning to an extent, but like I said, we follow the evidence, and well, we'll discuss it all. So please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Without further ado, let's break it down. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about Melodee Buzzard, and what I wanted to do as well is I wanted to do like a comparison of the two cases. How they are similar, how they are different, why I suspect one's parents to be highly involved with the disappearance of their daughter, and why I'm not so suspicious on the other parents in the other case. And so, first I want to start off with this this article that was dropped from KGNS News. Grandmother of missing 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard numb and in shock over the disappearance. And so this is a family member of Melodee Buzzard, her grandmother. And I kind of wanted to play this. We'll listen to what she says and then kind of give our opinion. And then we're going to listen to and watch a vigil or parts of a vigil where Daniel and some folks were answering some questions out for Lilly and Jack Sullivan. So let's start off with Melodee Buzzard, then watch the other video. Compare and contrast.
What were your first thoughts when you saw this image?
I was totally numb and in shock. This is just so shocking to me, and that my granddaughter is dressed in a disguise. This is just so overwhelming. It's just so really scary.
The latest photo released of Ashley Buzzard and her daughter Melodee is reported to be from a rental car business in Lompoc on October 7th, just before the two headed out on a multi-state road trip. It's one of several surveillance images released by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office as detectives piece together the family's route and timeline.
We know that Melodee was still with Ashley on that return trip, as close as the Colorado-Utah border on the Colorado side on October 9th. So this does very much shorten our timeline, our search timeline, as well as the area of the search.
Sheriff's spokesperson Raquel Zick says an out-of-state license plate was added to the rental car at some point during the trip.
We originally were looking for a Chevy Malibu with California plates. Now we're looking for a Chevy Malibu with California or New York plates, or possibly something else.
Zick tells me investigators have reached out to law enforcement in Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and Southern California to help locate Melodee. Lori Miranda believes her daughter and granddaughter may have crossed paths with people she and Ashley's father once knew in those states.
You're saying that her...
So grandma, that's interesting. Grandma is thinking that maybe perhaps the reason why she was traveling out there is because She knows somebody out there. I wonder if there's ever been trips in the past to these areas before. Um, that's interesting. That's interesting. I hadn't watched this, by the way, as you could probably tell. I hadn't watched it, but she says here that there that she believes that maybe she crossed paths with people that they may have met in the past. That sounds like she's aware of some other trips out of the state in the past, doesn't it? And that's interesting.
Father's family, his people,
And my family.
and your family are along those routes.
Utah.
Utah.
Yeah.
So there is family and things like that along that route. Interesting.
Utah, when you start getting past Utah coming back, that's when you're running into his friends.
Lompoc school officials reported Melodee missing in mid-October. Authorities say Ashley has been uncooperative with investigators and has not provided any information on her daughter's whereabouts. Last week, the FBI executed a...
So it sounds like there was some sort of connection between, she said, his friends. That is Ashley's, Melodee's father, who passed away while she was about 6 months old in a motorcycle accident. I haven't looked into who he is. You know, maybe I need to do a little bit deeper dive into who some of these folks are. See if, because you know, it could have been just, you know, him riding a motorcycle and things like that. I have no idea. He you know, maybe there's something more to it. Seems like she's alluding to that he knows some friends. And if you're alluding to some people that you might know there in Utah and things like that are capable of taking a little girl, it don't sound like she has a lot of confidence in who the father's friends were, or that the friends that maybe her daughter and her daughter's father may have made in those areas. That's just kind of what it sounds like as far as coming from her. That's like the confidence. And again, this is most likely a very edited interview and pieces taken out. It's only 3 minutes and most of it wasn't even her talking. So you have to take what the media puts out there with a grain of salt sometimes when it comes to these things, because they're going to put out clips that sell and grab views. And so, you know, it sounds like she's being somewhat not necessarily accusatory, that there's some people out there that maybe, but that there is some sort of connection in Utah between the father's friends and maybe perhaps who her daughter was still associated with. Interesting.
Search warrant at Ashley's home as part of ongoing evidence gathering. Miranda believes Ashley knows where Melodee is and is pleading for her to speak up.
You need to tell them where the baby is. You need to tell them who's setting all these things up for you. I know you're not doing it.
Who's setting up what things for her? Huh. Interesting. I mean, like, to me, there's a lot of red flags in this case with this one. You know, a lot of things that aren't adding up. But who's she referring to there?
You're not doing it. It's up for you. I know them where the baby is. You need to tell them who's setting all these things up for you. I know you're not doing it.
Who is setting up all these things for you? I know you're not doing it. What is she referring to? I don't think she knows anything outside of, but it sounds like she has some suspicion of something. I wonder what she's suspicious of. I wish I could talk to her. Let's see. This says here the grandmother missing 9-year-old Melodee Buzzard recently spoke with the local media about her granddaughter's disappearance. She's totally numb and in shock. She said, "There's just so shocking to me that my granddaughter dressed in a disguise. It's just overwhelming. And it's just so really scary." And it goes on to say that they know that Melodee was still with Ashley on the return trip as the Colorado-Utah border. So there's some cameras. Let's back up a little bit. On October 7th, Melodee and Ashley, they go into the rental vehicle place, a vehicle spot, rent a vehicle. And It's a Chevy Malibu. It's a white one. It has California license plates. They go on a series of long trips, and it sounds like they go somewhere and then they come back. Some places include different states, some such as Kansas. And what it sounds like is that on October 9th, she goes out towards, I guess, Nebraska or something, maybe even on the 8th. And on the way back on the 9th, on the return trip, which on the 8th, they had changed she had changed the license plates. And on the return trip on the 9th, she is seen, she being Melodee, the little girl, is seen for the last time on camera or whatever, somewhere near the Colorado-Utah border. Now, there was let me pull up the image here that they have put out, a map that law enforcement has put out. Let me make this bigger. And so Colorado, Utah, and this is where they're pretty much starting off at, is Green River, Utah. And this entire trip is, if you put it in Google Maps, it's going to send you straight to Lompoc from Green River. This isn't like, there's nothing that stands out on this trip that says, oh, wait, hold on. Like, you wouldn't have gone that direction. You would have gone this other direction to have gotten, through here. You wouldn't have gone through Rancho Cucamonga. You would have gone around. The path that she took is the fastest path possible. So just food for thought on that one. All right, now let's transition a little bit into the Jack and Lilly case, where there was a vigil as well, and Daniel Martell and some interviews. So let's back this up a little bit.
After almost 6 months, Daniel Martell doesn't believe Lilly and Jack Sullivan are in the woods near their home in Lansdowne Station.
Everything's been searched at this point, so I think everyone's just looking to, what's the alternate, what could have happened to the kids other than being in the woods.
The kids were reported missing from their home in Pictou County on May 2nd. Since then, there have been extensive searches with cadaver dogs brought in and RCMP combing through more than 800 tips and over 8,000 video files. Despite little results, Martell says he's doing everything he can to advocate for the kids.
I'm just trying to keep the public informed as much as I can. And I don't know if I'm the best voice to be speaking for Lilly and Jack, but I'm still going to do it anyway, and for the kids.
Martell was one of many who attended the silent vigil at Stellarton's RCMP detachment to mark Jack's 5th birthday on Wednesday evening. Many of who came with the hope the event will keep the story at the forefront. For the maternal aunts of the kids, the last 6 months have been difficult, especially with speculation and accusations online about the family.
Absolutely miserable. It's a nightmare that I wish we could just wake up from, and I wouldn't wish this on anybody.
Vigil organizer Kent Corbett says the event is an opportunity to show support to the family and bring the community together.
We can let the family know that Pictou County and Nova Scotia and beyond are not going to rest until we find answers and bring Jack and Lilly home.
Pictou County's warden adds their disappearances significantly impacted the area, but cautions against speculation about the case.
They belong to all of us. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, it also takes a village, the whole county, to protect these children.
For Martell, he's touched with how many people came out for the kids.
People are still standing here in the cold just, for Lilly and Jack, especially Jack on his birthday.
Angela Capobianco, Global News, Stellarton, Nova Scotia.
So I actually talked with
6 months,
I talked with Daniel earlier today, and I was asking him about the boot prints and the location of the boot prints and which direction they were going and things like that. And what he told me was that they'd only sent him one picture. He only saw one picture of one print. He didn't see the cluster of prints or anything like that. Not that this didn't exist, just that they didn't show him that. And, he'd only seen one print. I asked him the direction the print was it going towards, and he told me it was going away from the roadway. And I said, okay. And, I asked him, I said, hey, have you been out there before? And he says, not to where the print was. I asked him why. Why not? And he said, because it's been searched and this and that. I'm like, so what? Why haven't you gone out there? I mean, at the end of the day, Jack was 4 years old when he went missing. I think him and Malaya had been together for 3 years. This is, I don't think Malaya's ex was much involved. The biological father was much involved in their kids' lives. And so I was like, and you're like the closest, you're the father to him, and to Lily as well. I mean, you're a father figure to them. Why not go out there? If there's anybody that would know if something stood out to them, it would be you. It'd be you. I really didn't like his answer, to be honest with you. But he said he's going to go out there and he's going to check it out. I asked him, I was like, hey, if there's something that you would notice, like, hey, Jack would like that, or Jack, that would catch his attention, or Lily's attention, or somebody else's attention, you need to go out there, dude. Because at the end of the day, because he started going off about, well, they could have been planted. I was like, they're not planted. The boot prints aren't planted. They're not in a location where somebody would plant them. Now, off the side of the road where they would be obviously found and things like that, maybe a little bit into the roadway, but out in the middle of nowhere off the pipeline with no other prints from somebody else. No, they're not planted. So he said he's going to go out there. He's going to take some pictures for me and look around and things like that. But like I said, I didn't like the answer. But that's the answer that he gave me. I'm not going to shy away from what, the truth is or isn't or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm going to just go straight forward, tell you guys, the truth, because at the end of the day, this isn't for Daniel. I'm not talking for Daniel. I'm not talking for Janie. I'm talking for Jack and Lily. And I still believe that RCMP, regardless if Daniel's gone out there and searched or not, they've done their due diligence. They've searched, they've background checked him. They've gone through all of their P's and Q's and whatever, right? And they don't believe that he's done anything. And so, I still stand by that, by RCMP and major crimes. But I hope he goes out there and searches and looks around, and I hope maybe perhaps he sees something that might stand out that could lead to some answers. Because at the end of the day, I just strongly don't believe that those things were planted. The boot prints, he says, and obviously there's kids that live in the area. There's a school bus that drives around and picks up kids and takes them to school, right? So there's kids that do live in the area, but how many kids are going to be walking that wear a size 29 or a size 11 in children that are going to be walking by themselves, 2 of them by themselves in the middle of nowhere on the pipeline? Now, if these prints were found off the side of the road or, on a trail or in a park that is common to where other people and other kids are at, 100%, I'll say, yeah, that makes sense. There's a good chance that they could be somebody else, but the middle of a pipeline in the middle of nowhere, nah, I don't buy that. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, Daniel, don't you find it suspicious and odd that he didn't go out there and search or go look at the one place where they said that they found something? Yeah, I am. But at the same time, him not going out there, or him going out there, that doesn't really change much of the investigation aspect of what they, looked into him. And, like I said, I don't like the answer. At the end of the day, RCMP search, they had the ground search crew out there too. And so he's falling back and relying on that information. I know I would have been out there, but the same thing could be said about Malaya, right? She took off, she left, the second day that she was there, she left. And so I think everybody's pointed that out, that she wasn't around. So when it comes to like oddities or things like that, we look at the Melodee Buzzard case, there's a lot of them, a lot of big red flags here. This is one that, like I said, Malaya left and Daniel didn't go and look in the area where they found the boot prints. Something to note, it's a piece of information. What does it exactly mean? I don't know yet. When you place it in with everything else that we know about the case, about RCMP's investigation, about how what they've done to investigate Daniel, what they've done to investigate Malaya and her family and things like that, leads you to believe that, they were aware of this, and they were aware, obviously, that Malaya left. Malaya was open and honest about that. She told them she was. That probably factored into their suspicion early on into their investigation. And I don't fault anybody for being suspicious about those things. Just as I would not fault RCMP for being suspicious about those type of activity, about Malaya just leaving and Daniel not going out there to the boot print site or wanting to, now obviously if they told him not to go there, that's another thing too. Now it's been some time and it's private property. I don't know if he has access and things like that, but he did say he was going to go out there in the near future. Let's see. Derwood goes, is it possible he never went out there because he knows they're not in the woods? Well, that's what he believes too, right? He that's his belief. And so maybe he feels like it's a waste of time to go out there. That's a good point, Derwood. And to a certain extent, I've heard him say something to that nature where he believes that Malaya has done something with the kids, not necessarily like nefarious, but like had them removed for whatever reason, custody issues, CPS issues. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different stories, to be honest with you. I don't remember which one came from which direction right now. So I'm not going to attribute anyone and put words in his mouth as to which one it was, but he believed that Malaya may have came up with some sort of plan, right? At least that's what he believes in part. And so, he mentioned something about how he was searching out in the woods like a moron, and he doesn't believe they were in the woods. And so that could lead to why he doesn't, hasn't searched yet. But there's just so many things that I don't like, to be honest with you. I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that he keeps saying that, and RCMP very well could be saying, we don't believe the kids are in the woods, but their actions speak otherwise. If they didn't believe if they believed 100% that the kids weren't in the woods, there's no point in searching. There's no point in doing this. Then why did they do a search? Why did they bring the cadaver dogs? So to me, it's a little bit contradicting. I don't like it. I don't like the contradiction. Now Daniel's been still super open with everything. And so, he's being super honest. I wonder sometimes if maybe perhaps his understanding of things that are being told to him isn't accurate. It's very easy to misinterpret something. That's how stories change, right? From one person to another, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and whatever. It's a lack of memory. It's a lack of, filling in holes, and sometimes it's a lot of information that he's trying to recall, or a person could be recalling, and could be inaccurate. So, but yeah, some of it I don't like it. But does it mean I think he did something nefarious? No. Like, for instance, I got an email where I guess Mr. Wong was telling people that Ron had gone and told him that he had to go into town. And Daniel told me that was true. He actually had. What Ron was doing was he was telling people about the kids being missing, and there was a medical issue, I guess, with Ron's, one of his family members that he had to take into town for. And so, but he had told apparently Wong that the kids were missing to try to bring awareness so that they could find the kids. So he was telling, I guess, a lot of people in the neighborhood on his way to taking somebody to a medical thing. And so, he could have just easily have denied it. Just say, oh, no, that never happened. Wong is lying, or whatever the case may be. But he's not doing that. He's still super open. He's still super truthful, answers the questions. I asked him if he'd ever been out there. Could have easily told me, yeah, I went out there and, just to kind of see the area when I was told, and I didn't see anything of that stood out. He's honest about it. So, he's been honest even when it's not made him look the best. So that's one other thing that when we do a comparison, right, between Daniel and Malaya with Ashley Buzzard, is Daniel and Malaya. I mean, Daniel's super cooperative with everybody. Anybody asks him a question, anybody says anything, he'll answer, doesn't hide from it. Malaya, she's super cooperative with law enforcement according to their documents. She hasn't lawyered up. She hasn't done anything. She hasn't spoken like publicly, like to, on a podcast or on a news media or an interview with a reporter or anything like that. But who she needs to talk to, which is law enforcement, she's talked to. She's been super cooperative. They did a polygraph test, did a bunch of things. When it comes to Ms. Buzzard, that's not the case. She's been saying some things that are unverifiable. So let's kind of look at what the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office brought in and what they said about the situation, and kind of compare and contrast it with what Daniel and Malaya and their situation. So this goes on to say that deputies attempted to locate Melodee and her mother, Ashley, at their residence, but were only able to speak to Ashley. This was October 14, 2025, who provided no verifiable explanation for Melodee's whereabouts. Now, it doesn't say that she didn't provide any explanation. It says she didn't provide no explanation. It said no verifiable explanation, meaning she's giving a story that can't, obviously, being Captain Obvious here, that can't be verified. Which is probably something to the effect like, she's with somebody. Now, in other documents, I think the FBI document, it stated that she wouldn't talk about, oh, no, it's this one. It says here, a search of the residence confirmed Melodee was not there. Ashley remained uncooperative and it was not confirmed Melodee's location or welfare. And so I'm assuming when they're asking her, like, hey, is she alive? Is she okay? She's just not answering to that, just outside of saying, I know where she's at. That's what it sounds like she's with somebody. Very similar, and I brought this up last night. It sounds very similar to like Casey Anthony, who kept coming up with a different story. And then every time they try to verify those stories, nothing came back verifiable. There you go. It's kind of very reminiscent of that. Let's see real quick. Maggie says, someone's saying that RCMP are watching Daniel Malaya's every move. That's true. I'm sure that was at one point. I don't know if that is anymore. It could be, not sure. I mean, unless you're hoping that they just, you're just going to watch them until they eventually go out and visit an area that maybe spark some sort of interest in the case. I mean, it sparks up a lead, right? Whether it's, hey, they visited this one spot, this lake, or whatever the case may be. Let's go check it out. I doubt it. It doesn't sound like it based on like my conversations with Daniel and things like that. It doesn't sound like he's being followed or watched, but I'm sure at one point he was. At one point, I think he was suspect number one, and so was Malaya, 1A and 1B. And as the investigation and the evidence came in, see, here's the difference, right? As the investigation and the evidence came in, officers have to follow that investigation and evidence. YouTubers and other folks, they look at that evidence and say, I don't believe it. It's not true because it doesn't fit my narrative, right? Difference is like me. I follow the truth and the evidence. Daniel saying he's never been out there to the footprints and stuff like that don't make him look good, in my opinion. I'm not shying away from that. I'm not hiding from that because I'm not on Daniel's side. I'm not I'm not on anybody's side. I'm on the side for the truth and hoping to find some answers, for these little kids. It just so happens to side with the fact that I don't believe that they did anything nefarious. I don't like their answers on a couple of things, or I don't like his answers on a couple of things, and I don't like her actions. I don't like the fact that she left, right away. But how does that fit when you place in all the evidence, right? Because RCMP knows that too, right? It's not like I'm holding on to this secret, like, oh no, I know Daniel hasn't gone out there and RCMP doesn't. It's not like Malaya's, leaving is something that RCMP isn't aware of. Like, it's not like somebody's going to call in a tip tomorrow and say, hey, Daniel on the DT show said that Malaya left 2 days after the kids went missing. And they're going to be like, gee, Willikers, we just solved this. It's not going to happen, right? They know that. They're aware of that. They're aware of how suspicious those things are and how they look. Based on my conversations with Daniel, it sounds like very early on in this investigation or in this disappearance, they treated him very much like a suspect. Regardless if Daniel doesn't see it or not, the way he says, no, they treated me differently. They joked with me. They did this. The goal of the officer is to get you to keep talking. Now, some people require some being a little bit forceful with your voice and inflection and things like that. The whole bad cop situation, and others not so much. Sometimes you just want to, let the person talk by thinking you're their buddy, things like that. So I strongly suspect very early on they looked at him like that. Very early on. Based on what he's telling me. Now, again, he could be lying to me, but based on his interactions with law enforcement and stuff, it sounds like he became less of a factor to them. Probably a couple months after the disappearance. Once the evidence and the investigation. Now, they did ask him to come in and talk to him more about his movements that morning relative to the pink blanket. I found it interesting that they didn't DNA swab him. I thought that was really weird. Just as much as I found, Daniel not going out there, it's not Daniel's fault that he didn't get swabbed, right? It's not suspicious on Daniel that he didn't get swabbed. This is an RCMP thing. I don't understand why they didn't ask him. Especially if you're going to be running forensics on a blanket, you want to make sure you can identify his DNA that's on the blanket, because you're bound to find it, right? You're bound to find his DNA on the blanket. It was in his house. So, do I think they're watching him now? I don't know. I guess it could be possible. It doesn't sound Like if they are watching him or keeping tabs on him and stuff like that, it doesn't appear it's to the extent that it probably was in the beginning of when, Jack and Lily disappeared. But I have no idea. I would also wonder how somebody else would know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, how would you know? If it's somebody random in the live chat that's bringing that up. All right, so back to Melodee Buzzard. Well, hold on, I got Ron Mexico comes in with $5 saying, "I won't lie, they were my suspect number one until I saw the FOIA release, interviews, etc." I wouldn't blame you. I don't blame you. I wouldn't blame anybody else for being suspect of them right away. I too would be there. It's kind of like Ron Logan from the Delphi case, where the two little girls were found on his property, and he had created an alibi before their bodies were found. And he'd called his cousin and told his cousin, "Hey, if the cops come ask and say I was with you during this time." Come to find out, he'd asked for the alibi because he had heard that the girls went missing. And during that specific time, he wasn't home. He knew that he was out drinking and violating his parole. And so it looked super suspicious that he was trying to get an alibi before a crime was discovered. And so everybody kind of, pinned their ears back on him. Even the FBI, they did multiple searches on his properties and stuff like that. And in the end, he ended up serving some time for that parole violation, but he wasn't the killer. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes to Daniel and it comes to Malaya, I'm coming in a little bit. I didn't come into this case right away. I'm a little bit behind. And so I had the luxury of seeing that, part of the investigation, understanding what part of the investigation had been done, and then seeing that Freedom of Information Act come in right away. And so I had that luxury that most other people didn't. But what I would say is that even if I had been watching this since the beginning, once that information divulged itself, I would have no longer been on that side of saying that Daniel and Malaya were involved in some nefarious manner. I would have followed the evidence. Proof in the pudding is with Brian Koberger. I was not thinking that he was innocent. There was never a point in my time that I covered that case where I thought he was an innocent person. I thought that there was a part where he had a defense, and in the end, I think he did have a pretty good solid. He could have had a defense. I don't think the prosecution was as strong as perhaps maybe his lawyer was, and I fear that maybe he would have he would have outlawyered the prosecution. But early on, I was like, man, I'm like 60%, 70% that he committed this crime. Because the evidence against him wasn't solid. I mean, and at the time that you only knew a small percentage of the information. And I told everybody that, like, hey, we only know a small percentage of the information. We only know the PCA. We don't know much. And in the PCA, it talked about how his phone had disconnected from the network and things of that nature. And so there's a number of reasons why somebody's phone can disconnect from the network. But by the time that the trial was about to start, they had Cellbrite, investigators go in and determine that the phone had gone through a series of, what's the word I'm looking for? Functions that they had done, that Brian Koberger had done. One of them was he had turned off the Wi-Fi manually first, and then he turned off his locations, and then he powered off his phone while the battery was still full. So all these other theories and thoughts about him running out of service or battery or whatever the case just go out the window. But in the beginning, that wasn't available and that wasn't out there yet. And so there was question for things. And to me, I went from, about that 65% more than likely that he did it to about 99% when the DNA came back on the knife sheath 1 in 8 octillion times likely to have been Brian Koberger's. Now, I had already knew that the DNA had matched on the knife sheath, but I was a little bit concerned because of an article that Howard Bloom, who we did have on the channel, and we've talked a few times, me, myself, and Howard. He's a renowned author, journalist, he's worked with the New York Times, wrote a book called A Requiem on the Idaho Murders, airmail articles. And we had him on the channel and we spoke to him. And in his airmail article, he had mentioned that Brian Koberger's DNA on the knife sheath was super small, was degraded. They couldn't find it. They had to send it to a second lab. The second lab had to find it. And I thought there was just too many moving pieces. And what ended up happening was he was inaccurate. He wasn't lying. He was just wrong. It was actually quite a bit of DNA that was found. A profile was able to be created in the Idaho State Lab. What wasn't found was a match in CODIS. That was not found. And so they sent it to Othrams not to try to, expand the DNA, but to create a family tree to locate your suspect. Now, unfortunately, the Othram lab couldn't finish the job, but fortunately for everybody involved, the FBI could. So they took over and they ended up finishing the tree that pointed in the direction of Brian Koberger. But it wasn't until the time that they said it was 8 octillion to 1. And the reason why is that told me at that moment that it wasn't this degraded speck of DNA that was barely found. It was a lot of DNA, enough to put him away. And that's exactly what it did. And so, and you guys can see the shift in my opinion. I literally went from like 60 to 65% chance that he did it and he's going to get convicted to 99 overnight, right then and there. And so, once there's undefying or undeniable evidence and there's corroborating evidence to back it up, that's where I start getting a little bit higher in the percentages of what I think happened. Hey, what's going on, Chloe? Buffy's in the house too. What's going on, everybody? What's going on, our mods? Hope everybody's having a good night tonight. Miss 101 is in the building too. All righty, so let's continue this. So no verifiable explanation of her whereabouts. So that means that there is some explanation that she's giving. It's just cannot be proven one way or the other. Detectives have confirmed that Ashley left California with Melodee in a white 2024 Chevy Malibu, initially bearing California license plates, and that was on October 7, 2025. Detectives believe that Ashley and Melodee traveled as far as Nebraska with a return trip that included Kansas. Beginning on October 8th, the Malibu was observed with New York license plates. It is unknown when the plate was placed on, whether additional plates were used at other times during travel. The New York plate seen on the car does not belong to the vehicle nor to Ashley. Investigators believe it was used for false or switch plate to avoid detection. So obviously she's doing something nefarious there. Now, to me, it seems like, if I had to take a guess on this one, and I spoke about this yesterday, the license plate thing change happens the day before she's last seen. So I don't think that the license plate change necessarily had to do with Melodee's disappearance. Now, I'm starting to lean towards that she was doing something separate. Ashley, that is Melodee's mom. And it's just, my speculation right here at this point. I have little evidence to back this up or anything like that. So I just want you to be clear about it. I'm not saying this is exactly what happened, but it sounds like she was going to do something that she didn't want people or somebody finding out. To go to the extent of changing your license plates is to say that you don't want the detection you're avoiding is law enforcement. And so that kind of narrows down what she could be doing, right? I mean, if she just got the rental vehicle, then she could be, avoiding an ex-boyfriend. She could be avoiding a lot of different people, right? To get the license plate changed out on a rental vehicle, who are you trying to avoid detection of? Right. So it sounds like whatever activity that she was doing, and this is again my speculation, appears to be illegal in nature. I would say it's a high possibility. Now, is that illegal nature thing include a trafficking situation with Melodee? That's a possibility. I'm not sure about that. There's a lot of moving parts for that. Conversations, text messages, which again, burner accounts and all these other things that you can elude. And if it's that big, it's very well possible that they could have eluded a means of detection. Right now, if it was a situation where, let's just say, and I'm just going to throw it like a drug drop off, right? If it was a drop off and, it went bad or south. Okay. That's a possibility. If there was a drop off, they saw Melodee and Ashley, and then it was not a part of, and let's just say the drop off went good. And then they followed them. And then at a different part of that trip, that's when they took her, which it sounds like that would have to be the case because it was on the return trip back, right? It sounds like whatever it is that they had already accomplished, whatever it is that they were doing, and she's on the return trip back, right? So they would have had to have followed her. And I'm just wondering if they have some video of her and they have video of them at different parts of their trip, if they would not be able to pick up a vehicle following them, right? And so also her disappearing on the return trip also kind of makes it less likely that something happened at the meetup point, at the drop off, if that's what occurred, right? Because if that occurred at the drop off, then there's probably less likely the chance that they're going to be video of her on the way home. So what does that kind of leave, right? It leaves that either she planned, this thing. Maybe she wanted to get away. She did a drop off for some money, and she wanted to leave the kid with somebody else, or sell the kid to be single without a kid. Is that a possibility? Maybe. She went back home. She didn't just disappear, right? So that kind of puts a little bit of a wrench in that thought, but not completely, right? Now they searched her home and stuff like that. I would assume she would probably have kept whatever financial thing that, payment that she would have gotten for whatever she did. They didn't find that at her house. So she probably, if it exists, is hidden somewhere else. Obviously. Not to be Captain Obvious here. But what it also leaves is the fact that it sounds like she was having some mental health issues, and maybe that was part of her driving around and stuff. Maybe the wigs, the license plates, and everything else was because of something that was going on in her head. Have y'all seen the movie A Beautiful Mind, where this guy, I think it's Russell Crowe, I think that's the movie I'm talking about, where he thinks he's doing all these certain things, it's all in his head. It's mental breakdown. Could she have been under immense paranoia? Maybe it's induced by some psychosis, maybe induced by something else, narcotic, possibly, I don't know. And that's what's causing these random trips, getting the getting the license plates, getting the rental vehicle, the wigs. Could that be what she was doing? And something just happened on this trip back. she gets in an argument with her daughter, or something else happens, and there's a lot of things that could have happened. A lot of things. But those that have dash cam, those that have like GoPros and stuff all over their vehicle, man, if you guys were in this area on that day, October 9th, October 10th, or the 11th, which is Green River, Utah, Panguitch, I hope I said that right, Utah, St. George, Utah, Las Vegas. I mean, a lot of people in Vegas. There's got to be a lot of cameras there, even in the outside area. Primm, Rancho Cucamonga, into Los Angeles. Check your stuff, guys. Check your stuff. Oh man, I almost made a rookie mistake. I almost closed the whole show by accident. Miss 101 says the license is wild to me. Out-of-state plate on a rental vehicle is the fastest way to get pulled over and checked by a canine unit. It is. That's why I'm kind of wondering if this is a person who might be dealing with a mental health issue and being super paranoid about something that may not be real. Let's see. Ask your questions, guys. Put a couple of stars so that I know you're talking to me and not to each other. I'll be answering your questions for the next couple of minutes. What is your thoughts on the warden's speech? On what speech? I haven't seen it. Let's see. Put a couple stars. That way I know you're talking to me. I'll answer your questions. DT, my question. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like what warden? Send me an email and I'll look into it. Running drugs. I mean, that's one of the things that obviously pops into everybody's mind right away, right? Is she running some drugs? Is that why she's doing, going to this extent? Let's think about that. Like the license plate thing kind of throws it off, right? Because you already rented the rental vehicle, but why the license plate? It sounds like I mean, I guess that you're afraid that if somebody sees something on camera, and your vehicle's on camera somewhere, it just to me it seems almost something more nefarious, right? You don't want it to get back to you, period. So you got a rental vehicle with the license plate in case they run the license plate. But like if you're doing like a drug buy, right? And or you're dropping off a load. I guess, I mean, if you're super paranoid, you're probably going to try to do everything. But I'm not necessarily certain that's the route they catch you, If they have you on camera like that, they're probably going to knock you down right away too. You know what I mean? It's not like they're like, oh, we're going to capture this person on camera, then, come back later with a warrant, stuff like that. They like well, it could be, but I don't know. It's weird. The whole license plate thing screams paranoia to me. But the drugs aspect, if you're running drugs, that could heighten your paranoia for 100%. 100%. I appreciate that. Gina comes in saying, hey, everyone, show DT. We appreciate everything he does by showing him some love by smashing the like button. Come on. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. A Beautiful Mind. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it screams to me like, like that's, Because if there was some sort of buy and all these other things that were going on, and she was going back and forth that many times, an operation like that, I mean, you're going to go, I would be shocked if it was unknown. You know what I mean? Or even if there wasn't any like some rumblings or rumors from the, your drug enforcement guys. Something going back and forth that many times. I don't know. It's weird. She was trying to rent a vehicle a few days after. Was she trying to go get Melodee? Interesting. I didn't know that she was trying to rent a vehicle a few days afterwards. Please send me that if you can. Drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com to my email address. I would really, really appreciate that. I didn't know that. Oh, are you talking about what the warden said at the vigil? I thought you were talking about Melodee's case. I need to watch it. I'm not sure which. If you're referring to the older man, I did watch it. I saw him, but I haven't watched the entire thing. So there's a good possibility. Thank you. There's a good possibility I haven't seen that. He started the vigil. Gotcha. For some reason, I heard warden, and I was thinking for the Melodee case instead. In fact, let me pull that up real quick. Let's see. All right, let me pull this up real quick, guys. Give me a second. And I'm going to turn the volume up on this, and we'll watch this.
2 stars that rose before the dawn, whose laughter still the breeze rests on. 2 tiny footprints in the dew, forever soft, forever true. The sun still calls your name each day, the wind still hums where you would play, and every ripple, leaf and song, your spirits dance, still bright, still strong. Though arms may ache and eyes still weep, love's promise is a vow we keep. For love can never fade or flee. You live in hearts and memory, Lily with courage wild and free, Jack gentle as the sea, together bound beyond the sky, 2 best friends lost and we don't know why. So we will walk and speak your names through joy and sorrow's tender flames, and every step and every tear will whisper softly, you are here.
We need to remember little Lily and little Jack and do all that we can to help in any way. And I did more interviews with media on this subject than I've ever done in my 9 years as warden. And it's not what you want to be doing interviews on, but people are really concerned about little Lily and little Jack right across this country. There's nothing that hits the heart more than when our little ones go missing. And I've said many times to the media, it takes a village to raise a child. And it's our responsibility, everybody in Pictou County, it's our responsibility to look after all our children. We need the whole community to keep our children safe.
Our hearts continue to go out to Lily and Jack's family and their loved ones, as well to all the community. To the community members, including all of you, thank you for being here tonight. I know you care deeply about these children, and so do we. This case has truly affected many, as is demonstrated here this evening. I can assure you that we have not wavered in our commitment to determine what has happened to Lily and Jack. Our major crime investigators are working every day to determine the circumstances of their disappearance. The major crime team has engaged agencies and organizations from across all of Canada We thank the public for all their tips and information that has been submitted and encourage anyone with information to reach out to the RCMP.
I'm gonna see if I can find the beginning part. I did see most of what the warden said. I am familiar. I was not familiar with who the warden was, but I did see part of it. And I did see his beginning part. But let me see if it's on YouTube real quick. Let's see. I'm going to try to find it real quick. I found there's like music in the beginning. No. Saying it. I'll have to see if I can find it, and I'll have to listen to the whole beginning part. I know that he said some interesting stuff, but I definitely have to listen to the entire thing. Just gonna make sure my email's not filled with anything else. All righty. Thank you, Kent. I appreciate that. That'll help. Definitely appreciate that. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to it. I'll go through it and check it out once I get it. But all in all, I do think that there's a pretty big difference here between, like, for instance, what the difference between Melodee's situation and Jack and Lily's situation as far as their parents go. I think there's a huge difference. Let's see. Kent just sent it to me. I'm gonna try to play it, Kent. Your profile comes out, so I want to make sure. I want to try to close it or make it so that it doesn't show anybody's personal information or anything like that. So. All right, I think I got it. I think I can do it.
If you want to just get it done, make sure we see him. And, yeah, for help. Live and then we'll get underway.
Oh, no sound? Here, just a sec. I'll
thank them on behalf of the family and everybody that is fighting for answers for Jack and Lily to come home. They will take and house the hardscape items as well as a dinosaur animal, stuffed animal.
I'm going to try to turn this up real quick.
Scotia and the world beyond. So this evening we have the county warden, Robert Parker, that will be coming up.
Sorry, everybody.
Then we will have, or she will read a speaker for the evening.
I do want to thank
Here it is.
Good evening, everybody. I'm honored to be here, and not for the reason we're here, but to pay honor to our two little ones that hopefully will be back with us soon. I do want to thank Kent Corbett behind me for all the good work he's done to keep this going. It's not easy over 6 months, although in some ways this isn't something any of us are going to forget for a long while, and we don't want to forget. We need to remember little Lily and little Jack and do all that we can to help in any way. And I did more interviews with media on this subject than I've ever done in my 9 years as warden. And it's not what you want to be doing interviews on, but people really are really concerned about little Lily and little Jack right across this country. Not just here in Pictou County, not just here in Nova Scotia, but right across the country and even farther. There's nothing that hits the heart more than when our little ones go missing. And I've said many times to the media, it takes a village to raise a child. And it's our responsibility, everybody in Pictou County, it's our responsibility to look after all our children, including the little ones that are with us tonight. Our children are born in the families. They have parents and grandparents and cousins and everything, but we need the whole community to keep our children safe. And I think there's a feeling with all of us right now that we didn't do our job. Something went wrong, and we do not want that to happen. That's not what we want to happen in our community, but it did happen. And we need to know, people need to know what went wrong. What did we do wrong, or what did anybody do wrong that caused this to happen? Was it just lost in the woods, or was there something more? Now, the majority of people that I meet on the street or anywhere around do not believe those children are in the woods. I'm being honest tonight. That's what I hear from 75% of the people I talk to. So if there is something else that's happened, then we're relying on the RCMP, and Staff Sergeant McKinnon's going to comment tonight. People are concerned that they're not hearing anything. Well, there's only so much to hear after a while. If they haven't found anything new, there's nothing to hear. But there is some feeling that, well, maybe they're holding back. Well, if that's the case, I'll ask Staff Sergeant McKinnon to address that tonight. I know in any investigation, you can't let everything out and still expect to find out what went wrong. But I'm just speaking as clearly as I can tonight that that's the feeling the majority of people I talk to is that something else happened to Lily and Jack. And hopefully I still believe in my heart that we're going to find them. That maybe somebody took them for whatever reason, and I doubt if that was a stranger, but there's all kinds of things that could have happened, but unfortunately, because there's not enough news out there, or nothing new, people make up their own stories. You're forced to.
I agree.
You don't have any real facts to go by, and that hurts people. That hurts family. It hurts all kinds of people that are related to Lily and Jack, because fingers start pointing at people, and perhaps wrongfully, most likely wrongfully, but unfortunately that people get hurt when, I'm not a social media person, but people let me know what's being said, and it's hurtful. So I ask everybody to be mindful of that and try to stick to the facts and not to the stories. I have a poem that I was asked to read, so I'm going to read that at this point because God is the one that's going to help us out.
So there it is. What are my thoughts on what he is saying? I think he is underestimating a little bit about the possibility of the kids being off in the woods. I understand everybody not understanding it and everybody having a certain opinion, right? But just because a lot of the people in that area who are not as informed have a certain opinion doesn't mean that they're right compared to the ones that are informed. So what I'm saying is, like, you can have a lot of people who don't know a lot of things because they don't have all the information, just because they all congregate, or they create an echo chamber where they all believe certain things based on the limited information that they have. And just because a few of them or more of them believe in that doesn't mean that they're right compared to the, for instance, the investigators that are investigating the case that have all the information. Somebody at one time told me in my comment section saying, Daniel, do you think all these creators that have been covering this case longer than you have are just wrong and that you're right? And I'm like, that you know more information than they do. And I said, you're asking the wrong person. That what you should be asking is those people that you're accused that you think know everything. You should be asking them and yourself, do you think you know more than what the RCMP does, than what law enforcement does? See, because for me, what I do is I side with the information that, and where it's coming from is from the group that knows all the information, right? So, it's like it's like back in the day, right? Doctors didn't realize that there was germs and things that you couldn't see, and a lot of people got sick and died from these surgeries and stuff. But once somebody came up with the microscope and they were able to determine that there was germs and stuff like that, it brought in the information. But up until that point, I guarantee you there was a lot of people who were like, we can't see something. We can't see the germs on there, so it doesn't exist. Right. And at a certain point, there was a lot of people that probably sided with what they saw versus the science and what came out afterwards. Just like the other saying that I say, I couldn't figure out how to make a ton of steel fly, but there are some engineers who've created planes made out of steel that can fly pretty dang well. And so, majority of the people that I know probably couldn't figure it out. Does that mean that the majority of the people that I know, just because there's a lot of people that I know, all think the same way, that we're the right ones versus the ones that are the engineers that know how to do this? And just because there might be just one or two or a few of them in the area or in the conversation or whatever. I hope you guys are getting the gist of what I'm trying to say. But to me, I just think in the end, I think there's a lot of, I think people are overestimating the abilities of the dogs and underestimating the possibility of how vast and how dense the forest can be. At the end of the day, there's some footprints that are in the middle of nowhere, that there's two of them, two different sizes, two that are for little kids in the middle of nowhere that isn't too far away from the house, walking away from the direction of where the blanket was last seen, or where the blanket was found too. So I strongly suspect that there's a good possibility that they could have just outwalked the search area. Yeah. So let's see. I'll answer a few more questions and then we're calling it a show. Truth and answers. Let's help bring Lily and Jack home. Yeah. Now, do I think that the warden here knows something that we don't know? I don't know. It sounds like he's talking to a lot of people from the area. It sounds like he was trying to get some answers from RCMP himself and was kind of falling back and saying, hey, this is what I'm hearing from the people in the area. Didn't sound like he was saying, this is what I'm hearing from law enforcement that are investigating this, right? There's a little bit of a difference there too. So interesting stuff. Thank you, Jeremiah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, all righty, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for me tonight. I'll be back on tomorrow night with former FBI agent Jennifer Coffendaff. We're going to be talking about the Melodee Buzzard case a little bit more in depth. And I'm going to ask her some pretty tough questions as far as why hasn't law enforcement made a move? What are the tactics that could be going on that we could be seeing at this early portion of this investigation? When should we expect an arrest, if when at all? Those type of questions. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys there tomorrow. I'll be there. Until next time, we'll see you then. Oh, Friday night, Dr. Vona is going to be back on. We're going to talk about probably both of these cases again. So we'll see you guys then. Until next time, peace out, y'all. Bye.